Partisanship in Congress, a call for nonpartisan leadership.
Mark Twain's critique of parties in the age of MAGA programming. The current political climate in the United States is marked by intense partisanship, where party loyalty often overrides individual judgment and critical thinking. This phenomenon is not new. It was eloquently critiqued by Mark Twain over a century ago. His observations about party allegiance, transforming voters into chattels, and undermining liberty resonate profoundly with the dynamics of the MAGA, Make America Great Again movement. This paper explores Twain's critique, examines its relevance to the MAGA movement, and proposes solutions to foster a more reflective and independent electorate. Mark Twain's critique of party loyalty. In his essay, The Character of Man, Mark Twain decried the tyranny of party allegiance. He argued that party loyalty turns voters into mere instruments of party agendas, stripping them of their independence and critical faculties. Twain highlighted the contradiction between the rhetoric of liberty and the reality of party politics, drawing parallels to the hypocrisy of justifying slavery with claims of moral superiority. The MAGA movement as a modern example. The MAGA movement exemplifies many of Twain's concerns. Staunch loyalty to former President Donald Trump often overrides critical evaluation of policies and actions, creating a situation where allegiance to the movement eclipses individual judgment. This loyalty is reinforced by populist rhetoric that claims to champion freedom while simultaneously undermining democratic norms. Key points of comparison. First, blind party allegiance. Twain warned that party allegiance transforms voters into chattels. Similarly, MAGA supporters often prioritize loyalty to Trump and his endorsed candidates over critical evaluation of their actions. 2. Contradictions and hypocrisy. Twain highlighted the contradiction between the rhetoric of liberty and the reality of party politics. The MAGA movement claims to defend freedom, yet its actions, such as undermining electoral processes, contradict these ideals. 3. Exploitation by leaders. Twain cautioned against leaders who exploit party loyalty for selfish purposes. Critics argue that Trump and MAGA leaders use their influence to advance personal and political agendas at the expense of democratic principles. 4th, resistance to critical thinking. The MAGA movement discourages dissent and critical thinking, aligning with Twain's description of voters manipulated by designing men. 5. Historical parallels. Twain drew parallels between contemporary and historical self-deception. The MAGA movement continues this tradition, using populist rhetoric and party loyalty to galvanize support while undermining democratic institutions. Proposed solutions. To counteract the negative effects of blind party allegiance and ensure a healthy democracy, several measures can be implemented. 1. Promoting critical thinking. Education systems should emphasize critical thinking and evaluating political positions on their merits, rather than on party lines. 2nd, encouraging independent candidacies. Support for independent candidates can provide alternatives to the dominant party structures, encouraging a more diverse political landscape. 3rd, electoral reform. Implementing electoral reforms such as ranked choice voting can reduce the power of major parties and allow for more nuanced voter preferences. 4th, public awareness campaigns. Launch campaigns to educate the public about the importance of independent thought and the dangers of blind party loyalty. 5. Strengthening democratic institutions. Enhance checks and balances within the government to prevent the abuse of power and maintain democratic integrity. Conclusion. Mark Twain's critique of party loyalty is a timeless reminder of the dangers inherent in blind political allegiance. The MAGA movement exemplifies these concerns, showcasing the potential for manipulation and the erosion of democratic norms. By fostering critical thinking, supporting independent candidacies, and implementing electoral reforms, we can ensure a more reflective and independent electorate, capable of upholding democratic values and critical thinking. The dysfunction in Congress, largely driven by partisanship, is a growing concern for the American people. As citizens increasingly lose faith in their representatives' ability to govern effectively, the need for substantial reform becomes apparent. One promising solution is the adoption of nonpartisan leadership roles within both the House of Representatives and the Senate. This article explores the potential benefits of such reforms and outlines specific rules and procedures to achieve a more collaborative and functional legislative environment. The problem with partisanship. Partisanship is widely recognized as a root cause of legislative gridlock and dysfunction. Historical warnings from the Founding Fathers, particularly George Washington, about the dangers of factionalism have largely gone unheeded. Today, the House of Representatives and the Senate are often paralyzed by partisan interests, leading to animosity, stubbornness, and a lack of productive debate. Imagine a baseball game where each team gets to choose the umpire when they bat. This is how Congress functions, or more accurately, dysfunctions, today. The current climate fosters great animosity, hate, and stubbornness, rendering Congress ineffective and posing a danger to democracy. The case for a nonpartisan Speaker of the House. A nonpartisan Speaker of the House could play a crucial role in reducing partisan gridlock. By relinquishing party affiliations and adopting a nonpartisan stance, the Speaker would prioritize fair and unbiased decision-making, leading to more balanced and productive legislative sessions. Sample House Rule for Nonpartisan Leadership. Rule 25, Nonpartisan Leadership. Section 1, Definitions. 1. Nonpartisan, not affiliated with or influenced by any political party or organization. Second Speaker of the House, the presiding officer of the United States House of Representatives. Third Committee Chairperson, the head of any standing, select, or joint committee within the House of Representatives. Section 2, Nonpartisan Requirements. First, relinquishment of party affiliations. Upon election or appointment, the Speaker of the House and all committee chairpersons must relinquish any affiliations with political parties or organizations. They must officially change their registration to independent or a similar nonpartisan designation within their state or district. They must not participate in any activities, events, or functions organized by any political party during their tenure. Second Oath of Nonpartisanship. The Speaker of the House and all committee chairpersons must take an oath to conduct the business of the House or committee in a strictly nonpartisan manner. The oath shall be as follows. I solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of my office without regard to partisan considerations, and will conduct the business of the House or committee in a fair, impartial, and nonpartisan manner to the best of my ability. Section 3. Provisions for maintaining nonpartisanship. 1. Review and oversight. An independent oversight committee, IOC, shall be established to monitor and review the activities of the Speaker of the House and all committee chairpersons to ensure adherence to nonpartisan principles. The IOC shall be composed of an equal number of members from each major political party and a number of independent members, not affiliated with any party, to ensure balance and fairness. Second, grounds for removal. Any evidence of partisanship, including but not limited to participation in partisan activities, biased decision-making, or communication that indicates party favoritism, shall be grounds for investigation by the IOC. A simple majority vote by the IOC is required to initiate a formal investigation. Third, process for removal. If the IOC determines, through a fair and thorough investigation, that the Speaker of the House or a committee chairperson has engaged in partisan conduct, they shall recommend removal. A 2/3 majority vote in the House of Representatives is required to remove the Speaker or a committee chairperson based on the IOC's recommendation. Fourth, succession. In the event of removal, the Deputy Speaker or the Vice Chair of the committee shall assume the role temporarily until a new nonpartisan leader is elected or appointed. Section 4, Enforcement and Penalties. First, penalties for non-compliance. Violations of this rule shall result in disciplinary actions, including but not limited to censure, removal from position, and ineligibility for future leadership roles within the House of Representatives. The IOC is responsible for determining appropriate penalties for non-compliance, subject to approval by a majority vote of the House. Second, reporting and transparency. The IOC shall publish an annual report on the nonpartisan conduct of the Speaker of the House and committee chairpersons, including any investigations, findings, and actions taken. All reports shall be made publicly available to ensure transparency and accountability. Section 5. Amendments and inviolability. First Amendment process. Any changes or amendments to this rule must be proposed in writing and require a 2/3 majority vote in the House of Representatives for adoption. Second, inviolability of the rule. This rule may not be suspended, nor may any provisions be waived under any circumstances on the House floor or elsewhere. It remains in effect at all times to ensure continuous enforcement and compliance. By implementing these provisions, the House of Representatives aims to foster a more collaborative, fair, and nonpartisan legislative process that prioritizes the interests of the American people over party politics. Addressing partisanship in the Senate. While the focus has been primarily on the House, the Senate also suffers from partisan dysfunction. Implementing nonpartisan principles in the Senate could further enhance legislative efficiency and cooperation. Sample Senate Rule for Nonpartisan Leadership and Procedures. Rule 27, Nonpartisan Leadership and Procedures in the Senate. Section 1, Definitions. 1. Nonpartisan. Not affiliated with or influenced by any political party or organization. Second, Senate leadership, including but not limited to the Senate Majority Leader, Minority Leader, and committee chairpersons. Third, Committee Chairperson, the head of any standing, select, or joint committee within the Senate. Section 2, Nonpartisan Requirements. First, relinquishment of party affiliations. Upon election or appointment, the Senate Majority Leader, Minority Leader, and all committee chairpersons must relinquish any affiliations with political parties or organizations. They must officially change their registration to independent, or a similar nonpartisan designation within their state. They must not participate in any activities, events, or functions organized by any political party during their tenure. Second oath of nonpartisanship. Senate leadership must take an oath to conduct their duties in a strictly nonpartisan manner. The oath shall be as follows: I solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of my office without regard to partisan considerations, and will conduct the business of the Senate or committee in a fair, impartial, and nonpartisan manner to the best of my ability. Section 3. Provisions for maintaining nonpartisanship. 1. Review and oversight. An independent oversight committee, IOC, shall be established to monitor and review the activities of the Senate leadership to ensure adherence to nonpartisan principles. The IOC shall be composed of an equal number of members from each major political party and a number of independent members not affiliated with any party to ensure balance and fairness. Second, grounds for removal. Any evidence of partisanship, including but not limited to participation in partisan activities, biased decision-making, or communication that indicates party favoritism, shall be grounds for investigation by the IOC. A simple majority vote by the IOC is required to initiate a formal investigation. Third, process for removal. If the IOC determines, through a fair and thorough investigation, that any Senate leader has engaged in partisan conduct, they shall recommend removal. A 2/3 majority vote in the Senate is required to remove the individual based on the IOC's recommendation. Fourth, succession. In the event of removal, the deputy leader or the vice chair of the committee shall assume the role temporarily until a new nonpartisan leader is elected or appointed. Section 4. Debate and voting procedures. First debate time, allocation. The Senate Majority Leader shall ensure equitable allocation of debate time for proponents and opponents of a bill. Debate times must be set in consultation with the Minority Leader. A minimum of 2 days must be allocated for debate on each bill, except in cases of emergency as declared by a 2/3 majority vote of the Senate. Second Amendment process. Members must be allowed to propose amendments to the bill during the floor debate, The Senate leadership shall ensure that sufficient time is allocated for the discussion of proposed amendments. All amendments must be submitted in writing and made available to all members at least 24 hours before the scheduled vote on the bill. Section 5. Voting procedures. First roll. Call. Vote. All votes on bills must be conducted via a roll call to ensure transparency and accountability. The results of the roll call vote must be immediately published and made available to the public. Second, electronic voting. Electronic voting systems must be used to expedite the voting process. Each member's vote must be recorded and displayed publicly in real time. Section 6. Oversight and accountability. First annual review. An independent oversight body shall conduct an annual review of the Senate's adherence to nonpartisan principles. The results of the review shall be presented to the Senate and made publicly available. Second appeals process. Members may appeal decisions perceived as partisan by submitting a petition signed by at least 20% of the Senate membership. Upon receipt of the petition, the Senate shall hold a vote to override the decision. A simple majority is required to bring the issue to the floor despite the initial decision. Section 7. Amendments and inviolability. First Amendment process. Any changes or amendments to this rule must be proposed in writing and require a 2/3 majority vote in the Senate for adoption. Second, inviolability of the rule. This rule may not be suspended, nor may any provisions be waived under any circumstances on the Senate floor or elsewhere. It remains in effect at all times to ensure continuous enforcement and compliance. Making the President of the Senate nonpartisan. The role of the President of the Senate, held by the Vice President of the United States, is inherently partisan. However, certain measures can be taken to minimize partisan influence within the bounds of the Constitution. First, voluntary nonpartisan conduct. The Vice President could adopt a self-imposed code of nonpartisanship, pledging to exercise their Senate duties impartially. Second, delegation to a nonpartisan figure. The Vice President could delegate presiding duties to a nonpartisan or bipartisan figure, such as the President pro tempore, for routine Senate functions. The Vice President would still fulfill their constitutional role of casting tie-breaking votes. Third, Senate rules. The Senate could adopt rules to limit the Vice President's involvement in legislative processes to tie-breaking votes only, minimizing their day-to-day influence. Proposed constitutional amendment, nonpartisan President of the Senate. Section 1. The Vice President of the United States shall retain the title of President of the Senate, but shall exercise no partisan influence or leadership within the Senate. Section 2. The President of the Senate shall not participate in any partisan activities, events, or functions within the Senate chambers. Section 3. The President pro tempore shall preside over the Senate in the Vice President's absence and in all routine legislative matters. The Vice President shall cast a vote only in the case of a tie, in accordance with Article 1, Section 3 of the Constitution. Section 4. This amendment shall not be construed to alter the succession to the presidency or the other constitutional duties of the Vice President. Conclusion. The proposed rules and constitutional amendments aim to foster a more collaborative, fair, and nonpartisan legislative process in both the House of Representatives and the Senate. By adopting these measures, Congress can prioritize the interests of the American people over party politics, leading to more effective governance and a stronger democracy. The challenge of convincing partisans to support these changes requires strategic efforts, including public support, bipartisan advocacy, and a commitment to the founders' vision of a united and functional government. This article aims to provide a thorough and compelling argument for nonpartisan reform in Congress, incorporating detailed rules and procedures to achieve this goal.